For those who didn't know, I started my speaking career with some of the biggest speakers on the planet, literally as a T-boy, if you will, behind the stage with people like Tony Robbins and T. Harv Eker and Robert Kiyosaki. And I toured with Robert Kiyosaki for 3 weeks in Europe. So I've learned some of these speaking skills from the biggest speakers and names on the planet. Not only that, I often say this and I've yet to be proven wrong, but I can't see me not have been responsible for just about more talks than any person on the planet, only because of the fact that I literally had 8 offices and we would do sometimes 10 talks a week. And then I've gone on to own an agency and a consulting business where we've helped chiropractors all across the planet do workshops in their practice. We are literally now between 500 and 1,000 workshops we've facilitated for practices all over the world. So to say I know this stuff works is an understatement, but here is how you open a talk so that all resistance to the sale eventually dissipates and your selling becomes a lot easier. Here's how to convert workshop attendees within the first 30 seconds of every talk. So one of my greatest mentors taught me that it's not about the content, it's about the context. His name was Blair Singer, and he is probably one of my closest one-on-one coaches I've ever had in my life, Robert Kiyosaki's best friend, and anyone who's anyone in the speaking world has done some time with Blair. I owe him a massive debt of gratitude. He taught me everything I know about how to speak on stage, and he's been incredible. And one of the things he used to say to us was, it's not about the content, it's about the context. And the context with which he said it was that, we've heard this saying many times, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. But what he tried to get us to understand, that starts way before you open your mouth. So before you even say a word, here's how to open a workshop that immediately decreases resistance and helps people relax in your rooms and eventually commit to a new patient exam. So your opening actually starts way before they even see you. I believe I've got 5 tips for you about how you already set odds in your favor to have a great talk. Number 1, when they walk into practice, let's have them greeted with friendly smiles, chatty caddies at the front desk. We used to tell our CAs they may not leave someone in silence. That's not the point. It's already awkward going to a place you don't know for a workshop or a talk. They're probably expecting some type of sale at that environment. So we go overboard to make sure they feel at home, welcomed, and greeted. If you can greet them with a name, great, but I think that's quite unachievable many times, but at the very least, make sure they're greeted and spoken to. It's a simple thing. Make sure there's music when they walk in. So either to the practice, and if they've got to go to a separate room, in both areas, there has to be music when they walk into the practice, but there needs to be music also if you take them from the front desk into the workshop room, if it's at your practice, if it's somewhere else, if it's at a neutral venue, also make sure there's music when they walk in the room, because it's awkward when people walk in and they're shuffling and they're waiting. So make sure that that's also there. Now, if you are catering gifts and you're giving them gifts, I've done a whole webinar and a training and a YouTube video exactly on why it's important to give gifts. Either you're catering food, or you're giving them some type of t-shirt, or you're giving them some type of tote bag or goodie bag. This is a good time to give it to them. There's many studies done on the laws of reciprocation when you gift someone something first. So make sure this is a good time to give them their gift or their goodie bag or whatever it is before they start the workshop. Couple things on this. There is a process that I'm not going to cover in this YouTube video, but it has a lot to do with how you're eventually going to make your offer. Your offer starts, believe it or not, before you've opened your mouth. And it's got to do with what you give them before they even sit down. You can put it on their chair, or you can put it in their goodie bag, in their gift. It's some type of voucher or gift. Now, there's a lot of sales psychology in it, so it's not just a normal voucher or gift. It is how you're going to eventually make your offer. So I thought it would be pertinent for me to mention that now, is that that's how far ahead we think of the process. Before you've opened your mouth, they've already entered into your sale because of the way you position that voucher, so that it has to be consumed, viewed, or looked at prior to you speaking. I want to say that is critical. That is critical. And if you want more tips on this, watch all my YouTube videos, or YouTube videos specifically on the close, because that starts before you even open your mouth. The next process it's a simple one, but energy is everything. Energy is everything. So what happens at workshops typically, if you've got 30 people confirmed, you may put out 30 chairs. That is a big mistake. Golden rule. We never put out as many chairs as people were expecting. We always put less. So if you're expecting 30 people to show up, you want to make sure that you've only got 22 or 20. And the reason for this, they typically fill up from the back, not the front. So what happens is they walk in, they'll sit towards the back corner, typically closest to the door. And what that creates is this environment where if you have 30 chairs, let's say 25 people or 20 people show up, that means the whole front row is empty. Like clockwork, you're watching this, and if you've done lunch and learns, if you've done workshops, you know this is true. So we want to eliminate this from happening. So we want to have less chairs in the room so they fill up from the front. And that way, we have this great energy in the room. Because typically, as a speaker, we've spoken many times, you're normally speaking to 3 or 4 rows that's empty. That's not good for the selling environment. That's not good for energy. So we want to make sure there's less. Another way to achieve this, if you're speaking to a bigger audience, is just tape up the back rows. So they're forced to go to the front. Another way to achieve this is you have someone usher them to the front. It's a little less natural to do that. But if you have less chairs than there are people, just make sure the chairs are stacked and ready. You can always take out chairs later as people arrive, if more people arrive. So before we even said a word, hopefully you understand how much thought goes into this process of influence, really. And that's all I'm trying to get across in this video. It's not about the content, it's about the context. And you already have stacked a whole bunch of things in your favor. So the next part of it is, do you need a script? Well, the process that I teach is that we have an opening, we have 4 slides, and we have a close. I'm going to cover now the opening. When people say, do I need a script? My response always is, when are you the most nervous? You're the most nervous in the beginning of a talk. And that is when, and kind of only part of the entire workshop, that you do need a script or a set process that you open with. This is going to be the most valuable process you've ever learned in your entire life, and massively sets everything up in your favor, because you're going to be nervous, your heart rate's going, your palms are sweaty, and if you just follow a script here and learn it over and over, you'll see how you're eased into it as you do it. But this takes the thinking out of it in the beginning. So the script process, there's 4 or 5 parts to the script, depending if you want to add one extra one, which I'll teach you in a moment. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this video and you're learning something from this, and you can clearly see we've helped hundreds of chiropractors with this thing, just like, please, the YouTube video. It makes a huge difference. It helps me serve more chiropractors. So you have the 4 parts to any intro to any talk. Once you know these, you can talk anywhere in the world and you'll be better than 99% of people on the planet. The first part to any intro talk is something called enrolling questions. The next part to a talk is something called acknowledge or acknowledgement, which I'll teach you in a moment. The third part is what's in it for them. Remember, they're nervous. They don't know why they're there. We're going to cover that, exactly how to frame that, what's in it for them. And the last part is something called your ETR. This is your earn the right. Miss this and you massively affect your sale. This is why they should listen to you. So let's start with your enrolling questions. So what are enrolling questions? Enrolling questions have a goal. And this is quite literally, as the sentence says, enroll 100% of the room. This means we ask them a question, a specific topic question that gets people to engage with the question. This is an important part of the process. If you've ever been to a talk before and you ask people a question and then no one says, or you say to them, hey, who's got questions, and no one asks you questions, I'll tell you how to overcome that in a moment. That'll never happen to you if you start with this process. So if you're doing a talk on headaches and migraines, you're going to ask 2 questions specific about headaches and migraines. You may say to the room, with the knowledge that we're trying to enroll 100% of the room. By enroll, I mean put up their hands. The first part of it is ask them specific enrolling questions. The second part of enrolling questions is show them what to do. People are nervous. I mean, heck, you're nervous. They're also nervous to be in the room. So show them what to do when you ask those questions. So if you're doing a talk on headaches and migraines, you may ask a question that you know is going to engage with most of the room. The first part of the question might be, and it starts with a HMOY. How many of you? How many of you? Always phrase your questions like that. You'll thank me for this. It's easy. It takes the thinking out of it. And it goes something like this, just so I engage where everyone is in the room. How many of you have ever had a headache so bad that it's taken you out of the entire day? And then you're going to show them what to do. You may have noticed I didn't open with a, hey, thank you so much for being here today. That's how everyone does talk. Now you can do that. You can say, just, before we get going, thanks so much for being here, and then straight into your questions. If you feel it's awkward just to start, but normally I won't say thank you, I won't say welcome, I won't say anything. I'll just go, great, let's get going. Just before we get going, how many of you have ever experienced a headache so bad that it completely took you out of the day? And you're going to show them what to do. I want you to notice just how specific I'm being with each of these points, and that's why it's so good. So when I show them what to do, I want you to also notice how big I'm being. So your audience will match your energy, they'll match your movements, they'll match your mannerisms. Many people say to me, yeah, but it was a tough crowd. The tough crowd is normally based off the cue that you're giving them. So if you say to them, how many of you have ever had a headache before? and you do this, they will normally go half the way. So if you do how many of you, they're going to go how many of you, and you're going to feel like, wow, people are not engaging. How many of you have ever had headaches before and you do this? At least people go halfway, but some people go all the way. But most of them will mirror and match you. It's the same when you say to the audience, hi, and you say, how are you? And you say it loud, they'll just respond louder because you said it louder. So if they are a tough audience, it's normally got to do with our internal dialogue, and we're worried about what people think of us, and we don't put up hands nice and high. So let them match and mirror you. Now, once you've asked us one question, you can ask another question that's going to get the rest of the room. Done badly, by the way, this might be a yes or no question. How many of you have had headaches before? How many of you have never had a headache before? You're going to get 100% in the room. I mean, I think there are better ways, more elegant ways to do it, but I think for context, it's helpful to know that's what some speakers do. So how many of you have ever had a headache before? And another question might be, how many of you know of someone who's been so badly affected by headaches that it's taken them out of the day? Then like, okay, it's not me. And maybe people understand that there's a sale coming, and when someone comes to you in a shop and when you are browsing clothes and they say to you, how can I help you? A lot of people's knee-jerk reaction is, no, I'm just looking. That's them too. They may say, when you say how many of you have had a headache before, they may go, well, he's not going to get me. I'm like, okay, well, how many of you know someone who had a headache before? The point being is that you want to ask 2 questions, 2 or 3. The point being is you want to ask questions to get most of the room to engage. The next part of a great opening is acknowledge. Look, I truly believe this, that people show their commitment in 2 ways. One is their wallets, and the other one is their time. So they've taken time on a busy day to show up to your practice. This is where you do thank them, but more acknowledge them for being there. So here's the greatest line you'll ever learn with regard to this, and this is a story, and I'll tell it exactly like this. One of my mentors taught me that the secret to success is to show up, and you've shown up tonight. That really tells me one thing about you. That tells me you really care about your health. Many of you had to get babysitters tonight. It's dinner time now. You have to find a way to feed the kids early, etc. Babysitters. Many of you could be somewhere else right now, but you're here, which means you care about your health, and that means a lot to me, and I'll make sure I give you everything I've got today. So before we continue, you may ask them to engage with the person next to them, and just give the person next to you a little nudge and say, great job for showing up. Some of you are going to find that a little bit awkward to do that, and in the beginning of my career, I probably would have also found that awkward. I don't now. I often do a little trick where I say, put your hands up in the sky, put your hands behind the person, and pat them back and say, good job for being here. What tends to happen is we've asked them questions and kind of force them to answer it by putting your hand up and waiting, and then we've asked them to engage with their neighbor, and what starts to happen is like, this is different. This is a different feeling. Wow, this person's confident. They can command the room. You get a change in the environment immediately. So before we've started, we're doing very purposeful steps to get our audience to relax. The third part of a great intro is something called what's in for them. This literally, you're going to tell them, you're going to intrigue them with well-structured questions and statements as to what they're about to learn. We want to acknowledge them, we want to ask them their own questions, and we want to remind them that they're in the right place. So if they want to find out about headaches and migraines, we're going to tell them what they're going to learn in the next 30 minutes. And this is just a pretty stock standard script that you do every single time. So it's quite literally, in the next 30 minutes, what I'm going to cover is. But give some thought to the way you structure these questions, because you can say, in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to teach you about headaches and migraines. Doesn't sound too exciting, does it? Or you can say, in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to teach you about how everything you've been taught about headaches previously is wrong. I'm going to tell you the 3 most critical steps that you need to take with your diet that can reduce headaches by up to 60%. And I'm going to teach you the most essential 3 key elements that research is now showing determines whether you're going to have headaches for the rest of your life or not. That's different, right? And I just made it up right now in front of you, because I understand the psychology is people need to be enticed, they need to be intrigued, and there's a little bit of mystery with that too. So think about these questions, and this is why it's important to have this scripted at times. So before I continue with this section, it's important to mention that I developed an AI tool to help build this entire intro out for you, and the slides and the close. It's going to be in the show notes or somewhere you can click on it. It's absolutely free. It's an absolute game changer, so you don't think about that. But why these videos are important is because if you don't understand the why behind it, it's not going to make a big difference in your practice if you just don't understand why we're doing it. So this next section is called Earn the Right. Said differently, this is just about building credibility, your credibility. Miss this and people won't buy. Because why should they listen to you? This is the point of this section. Why should they listen to you? So earn the right is about establishing your credibility. So you need to remember, if you don't toot your own horn, nobody will. So here's how to structure a great ETR. It starts first with good. What's good? What is where you're at? What is a credible statement that's like, hey, I'm very blessed today. We've been in practice for X amount of years. I'm very blessed today. I've helped thousands of people with headaches and migraines, or a good statement. So it may start something like, since we're going to be spending the next 30 or 45 minutes together, is it okay if I tell you a little bit about myself? And then we go straight into the, my name is Dr. Rieder. We've been in practice for over 10 years. So now we're going to build credibility. We've been in practice here for 10 years. I've helped over 1,000 people with headaches and migraines, and I've even had the privilege to work with the likes of the New England Patriots. That's a good little structure for you. So we have name, and then we've got numbers from a credibility. How many years you've been in practice, how many people you've helped with the thing, and any celebrity endorsements. Don't be shy to mention these. People are very shallow. Believe me, if you were Tiger Woods' chiropractor, people will think you're more special than you are, because they want to go to that person's chiropractor. If you worked with the New England Patriots, they want to work with that person. So huge credibility builders for you is that's where you are right now, credibility builders. Next part of the script is, but it wasn't always like that for me. So now we segue into a bad experience, some life lesson you had. It may sound like, but it wasn't always like that for me. I've helped thousands of people with headaches and migraines, but it wasn't always like that for me. I actually used to have headaches and migraines myself so badly at school, in fact, that I had to leave the classroom at school and have to go lie in the kind of hospital bed at the school to get away from the headaches and migraines for hours. By the way, that's a true story. I did have headaches and migraines that badly. You'll go through that process and you'll have some of the bad experience. Another example of that is a bad experience you had with a patient. So you may say something like, we've now helped over 10,000 people with headaches and migraines, but it wasn't always like that. And the reason I went into that space was there was a big life lesson I had. We had a patient here, his name was Bob. He came to see me many, many times after seeing many, many people. When he came in here, he was on meds. He had been told he would never get off meds. He'd be told that he couldn't work because his headaches and migraines were so bad. He actually couldn't work and had so much anxiety around the aura that was coming up when he had a headache and migraine that he was in a bad state. Couldn't financially provide for his family and was told he has to be on medications and drugs his whole life. That's a pretty dire situation, right? So it's bad. And then we go through and what we found with him was, when I understood, when I put him through an examination, or in my case, when someone took me to a chiropractor. So then we have the next part of the story, which is a point of decision or an experience that changed my life. I went to the chiropractor, I got x-rays, I could see that there was pressure on the nervous system, I could see there was pressure on the brainstem, I could see in Bob's case that he had the same type of things. That is a point of decision or an experience of then where it gets better again. And after that, I made my life's mission to make sure I help people with headaches and migraines and get them off drugs and medications, but not be reliant on those things, because most of the solutions they get in the normal world has got nothing to do with what we found in these x-rays, and I'm going to teach you that in a moment. Good, where we are now wasn't always like that for me. We then have a life experience, personal or patient's life experience, and that's why I do what I do today, and that shaped me. If we were doing a talk on ADHD and dyslexia, or prenatal care, pregnancy, and having a childbirth that's natural, etc., I'd probably tell our story, our personal stories, that both our babies were premature. I was able to tell that story in my talks. I'd be able to go, hey, my name is Dr. Rieder, I'm a chiropractor, my wife's a chiropractor, my brother's a chiropractor, his wife's a chiropractor, my sister-in-law's a chiropractor. We've helped thousands of families in here, and we specialize in pregnancy and prenatal care. And that experience really came from us going through real challenges. And I would tell the story, and then I'd tell the story of how someone came into the hospital to adjust our babies. Through our premature delivery experience, we had this miracle with chiropractic as chiropractors. So I'd be truthful, I'd tell great stories, and that sets you up for your ETR. So that's how you open any workshop. I promise you when I say this, you'll be better than 99% of people on the planet if you simply do those steps. Now don't forget, you've got an AI tool that helps you build the whole thing. It will literally script and write that story, or that earn the right story. All you have to do is answer the questions and it'll do it all for you. It's absolutely incredible. It'll build your enrolling questions. It will build your what's in it for them. It will build your ETR. So don't miss the tool, but I'm glad you understand the why behind it.